Welcome, welcome, welcome. Good to have you all here with us today. Your saltwater guide, Captain Dave Hansen, with my buddy Bill Varney, and we have a special guest today with us, and we'll introduce him in a few minutes. So you're not going to want to miss this show. A lot of really good information. We're going to fly fishing. We're going to be surf fishing. We're going to be offshore fishing. We're going to be doing everything you can do as far as fishing goes. So you want to make sure you stay tuned to this. Share this podcast with all your friends. Hit the like button, the subscribe button. All of that helps me out tremendously. Elliot, my producer, tells me all the time, you don't mention it enough, Dave. And I guess I always forget because I get so excited about talking fishing, but it's super important for you guys to hit the like button and the share button and the subscribe button and the notification button so you know we're live. I hear a lot of people tell me, I used to get notified all the time, Dave. I don't get notified anymore. Well, that's on your end. I would make the whole world be notified the minute I go live if I could, but I don't have that control. That's totally 100% up to you to hit the notification button on Facebook or YouTube so that you get notified that we're live. We go live every day at 12 o'clock. Today, I know it's 2 o'clock Pacific Standard Time. One of my good friends showed up today. I had to pick him up at the airport. That's why I wasn't here. I made our special guest and Bill Varney both wait for me, and they did graciously wait. Thank you very much. And today is Okuma Wednesday, gang. We always talk about some cool Okuma products on Wednesday. So we'll show you guys some cool reels to fish with here a little bit later on in the show. I want to thank Okuma for their sponsorship. I've been with Okuma for a very long time. I can't even remember not being with Okuma. I've been with them for so long. They make some spectacular rods and reels. You can see all of them on all of my videos. I post 3 brand new videos every single day. And if you see me fishing, I'm using an Okuma reel and an Okuma rod 99.9% of the time. And why do I use them? Because they work. And when they saw me fishing with it, they said, hey, Dave, do you want to be on the pro staff? You're using our stuff already. I was like, are you kidding? Absolutely. I love Okuma. It works phenomenal. It's an epic reel, and it's a phenomenal rod. We worked together with Todd Manser, John Bretza, and I. We put together some great product for all of you to fish with. So check out Okuma if you have a chance. Watch these videos later on in the show to learn more about it. But hey, without any further ado, I've already made these 2 gentlemen wait all day, and they're here and they want to be on the show. So first we'll bring, Bill fell asleep waiting. Well, wake up, Bill. Wake up.
Hey. Hello, Dave. Hey, everybody. It's Okuma Wednesday. Great to be here.
Yeah, look at you all sunburned. It looks like you must have been out fishing or something. What were you doing?
I was. We were over at Lake Mead striper fishing, and it was absolutely phenomenal. You know, Lake Mead has 1,000 miles of shoreline. So whether you're in the boat or you're on the shore, you've got everywhere that you can go. You can go plenty of places by yourself. And my goodness, the number of striper that we caught and that were there, they weren't big ones. They were like 24 inchers. They were probably running in schools about that size. We didn't get any 50 pounders, but you know, they were there. We saw schools with several hundred in them from the shore and from docks, not even in a boat. Caught a nice big catfish. I'm not a big catfish angler, but you never know what you're going to catch on a gulp bait. So caught about 12-pound catfish there. And like I said, striper fishing was just absolutely phenomenal. And we had just the best time ever.
When you hooked into that catfish, if you're like me, I've done that before, and I hooked him in the whisker, and what a fight. And you think you've got the biggest striper you've ever hooked in your life, right?
Exactly. But what is weird is like those stripers, you know, they'll fight. I mean, I know the bigger ones fight a little bit harder, and then they'll come up to the surface. They'll like open their mouth, kind of like a largemouth bass, like a bucket mouth, and you'll get water in there and you'll kind of be fighting the water. But man, those catfish, they stay down on the bottom and they look for structure to get you hung up in structure. And so when you hook that thing and you're fighting it, you're thinking it's a big striper, but you're wondering like, why is it staying on the bottom? And why is it coming toward me down on the bottom, not coming up to the surface? So it is a big surprise when you see it. And I'm not the person who's going to eat the catfish, but couple of folks that were near me came running over and were begging for the catfish. And, you know, that's just something I'm not going to let go. That's if these guys are going to, you know, I've had fried catfish in Texas before. at Mr. Catfish. It's absolutely delicious. So I was happy to give it to them, and I know they were stoked to have it.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's okay to kill fish and take them home and eat it. You're not a criminal, so it's okay. It is
Absolutely.
okay. Hey, real quick, before we bring in your friend and my friend, why don't you tell us about the water level? Because that's been on the news for so long and you were there. What's going on with the water level in Mead?
You know, we went all over Lake Mead. Of course, we were on the Nevada side, and then there's the Arizona side. Didn't need to go over there. The water from the maximum amount of water that can be held in the lake is roughly about 100 feet down. So that is probably 150 feet up from what it was at its lowest, maybe even more. And the thing that you've got to remember is, of course, you've got 1,000 miles of shoreline. So as that water comes up and it spreads out to all that shoreline, getting that last 100 feet to fill up, and I know they don't want that much because they would have issues if they did. Getting that last 100 feet to fill up takes a lot longer because it spreads out, and from an acre feet perspective, it's much, much more water. So it's doing really well. The water is very clean and very clear in the lake. We're down at the dam, hanging out at the dam down there, checking it out. There's some spillways near the dam. So if we see the water get about 50 feet higher, it will begin to spill. They will never allow the water to go all the way up to its maximum level that the dam was built at for, because there's so much pressure behind that dam. And now there's a bunch of, people living downstream from it too. So there's tons of water. It looks really good. And when we were there, it rained about an inch for about 4 hours in one of the mornings. So the lake went up even more during that day. And then coming back along the Colorado River, Dave, it's amazing how much water's in the Colorado River. It is about 2 feet below its highest point, and normally it comes to that highest point, and I would say like kind of the end of June, beginning of July, when all the snow is melted. It's in the river. It's already at that point now. So I know all of those lakes, Havasu, Mead, all the lakes downstream are getting tons of water. There's tons more to go. I still have 5 feet of snow in my yard. It's going to be a while before that all melts off, but when it does, it's going to be game on and all that water downstream. And you guys in California, believe it or not, you'll have a shot to water your lawn again. So it's looking really good out there.
You mean to tell me that Gavin may take off the water restrictions?
I think he might take off the water restrictions.
No
They have let
way.
out so much water in California into the Pacific Ocean. In San Diego at Lake Hodges, because they're afraid the dam was going to give way and wash away everybody below it, they let out, I believe it was 222 million gallons of water over about a 2-week period. And then Shasta's had the same thing. And my buddies up on the Trinity River are just saying that the river is like twice as deep and twice as fast as it normally is this time of year. And it's really screwed up the fishing. So there's a ton of fresh water in California. A lot of it's being spilled into the ocean because they didn't take the time to work on those dams there. But other than that, we're doing our part out here in Colorado to try to fill you guys up again.
Well, thank you for that. And then, so if he takes the water restrictions off, is he going to give people refunds on their high cost of water?
I don't know. That's a good question. I know they were giving rebates on AstroTurf, so maybe he will. Maybe he'll give you a rebate getting your water. I know some of my buds have been telling me that their water bills have been like $300. Just these incredible water bills. So there's plenty of water. There's plenty to go around. Obviously, our planet's 3/4 water. I think we're going to be fine.
Yeah, I know it's not the end of the world, but it's funny to laugh about. I mean, it's not laugh, but it is. Right now, we got more water than we've ever had before, but he hasn't get on the show and said, "Hey, we got plenty of water now." That's kind of weird how it's only thing they report on is doom and gloom. But hey, to not introduce this man without giving him his fair just, I want you to introduce them, and I'll bring him on because you know way more about it. I don't want to screw it up. I want to know what he knows. That's why he's on our show. But I want you to introduce him, and then I'll bring him in.
Okay, well, this is my friend Benny Bobbit. Benny is he's originally from Florida, and he's going to tell us a little bit more about his past, but he lives in Leadville, which is over the mountain from me here. And of course, me and occasionally my buddies, we will go on our expeditions all around the county here into the next county. And do some trout fishing. And I am always looking for tips. I'm not an expert trout angler. I feel I'm pretty good at it, but certainly not at these guys' level. And I started watching these guys' videos on YouTube, Benny's videos in particular on YouTube, about the fish that they would catch, and just the most beautiful, biggest trout, variety of trout in the lakes right around my neighborhood, really here. And I was so impressed, that I had to get a hold of him and say, hey, can you take me fishing? That's one of the great secrets about fishing, and certainly about a lot of things in life, is that if you can find somebody who's better than you, somebody who will be a mentor for you, and ask them to take you out and just pay attention, learn from what they do, you will not only become a better angler, but you will become a better angler much quicker than trying to figure it out on yourself. So this is what Benny does. He's one of the top anglers in our area up here. He has thousands of followers following him, watching him, trying to figure out what he does. And one thing about Benny is he doesn't give out a lot of secrets. So we're going to do our best to squeeze him for what information we can get for him, because you'll be able to take all of these techniques we use here for the big fish and use them in California, and you're going to be able to impress all your friends after you learn what you need to learn about fishing in freshwater.
Well, without any further ado, Benny Bobbit, get on here. Hey, bud.
Hey, guys. Thanks for having me for Okuma Wednesday. Stoked to be sitting amongst such legends.
Oh, my gosh.
Well, there you go. Thank you very, very much for that. But you do something that is my zen. It's the absolute reason why I believe I'm on the planet Earth. Is I get to do all the saltwater stuff and teach and do all that. But, man, when it's time for Dave to get down and take it all and let it all go, I want to go fly fishing. I want to go tie my fly, walk out to the edge of the creek and cast it in there and get me a nice brown trout. And I'm, like Bill said, I'm looking at your Instagram page, and my goodness, there's some fish on there that are definitely bucket list fish for me. And it looks like you do it day in and day out. So thanks for being on our show today. There's going to be plenty of people going to be asking all kinds of questions, and the questions will pop up on the screen if they look good, or Bill will see them while you're talking, or I'll see them. If I miss something, Bill, make sure we go back. But Benny, welcome to the show. This is surely an honor for me to have you on here, because fly fishing is my zen. That is my thing. My wife will tell you. I get out on the edge of the creek. The best part about it is no one's asking me how much longer are we going to sit here, Cap? When are we going to move? When are we going to the next spot? What time do you think they're going to bite? It's just me and the trout, and it's pretty cool.
Absolutely. There's something very peaceful to fly fishing, and you can get away from it all. And, there's so many bugs and so many different options on what's going to work, that when you do figure them out and you're the one catching, it always feels great. And to share it with others is always a good feeling too. And back to what Bill said is, I've been out here for some years now, but I fell in with the right people. I mean, some of my best friends are 60 and 70 years old and been out here for 30 years doing it. And, I've learned a lot along the way, and I'm a sponge. I take it all in, and I don't ever act like I know it all, because there's always more to learn. So.
And then do me a favor. This is what we kind of start the show off all the time with guests. And this is so important, gang, to listen to how he got started, because it's key. We've got to get the children involved. So, Benny, how'd you get into fishing?
So I grew up on the beaches of Florida, a place pretty close to Sebastian Inlet. And you go over an intercoastal waterway on a bridge to get to the strip of island called Melbourne Beach. So from 2 blocks from my house to the beach, you got, the ocean fishing for pompano and permit and all kinds of whiting, and sometimes the snooker running during the mullet run. It happens in August, September, and the tarpon and the snook just go ballistic on these schools of mullet coming from the north. So it's a really good opportunity to get some big pelagic fish. But if you walk 2 blocks west to the river, we've got trout, we've got snook, redfish. We've got flounder, all kinds of fishing right on the west side as well. So I grew up in a place where surfing and fishing was prevalent. My father owned a surf shop and had an offshore boat, which we would take out of Sebastian Inlet 20 miles out to the Gulf Stream, where we would troll for mahi and kingfish and wahoo. We'd also deep drop for snapper and grouper. And it was just kind of in my lifestyle. I mean, I've got a story from when my dad took his parents fishing, and he threw me in the baby seat, and they got on the mahi school thick to where they pulled all 20 mahi off the school. And my grandpa, my grandma, my dad, all the rods bent over at once. Well, the fish were flying in the boat. My dad was hitting them with the bat. And he said by the time 20 fish got in, he finally looked over at me and I was just splattered with blood. So, it's pretty much in my genes.
Yeah, and you remember it like it was yesterday. That's what I try to relay to all my people. Bill and I both can remember the first time we got introduced to fishing, and it stuck like glue for us. And it seems like it stuck like glue for you. And that's why I talk about this. And Bill, he's super involved with CCA, and I'm super involved with CCA. And we talk about how important it is to turn children onto this sport, because even where you're from in Florida, they're on a mission to stop people from fishing. And on California, boy, it's on a level that you can't even comprehend. Bill will tell you, we go to these meetings, we listen to the garbage that comes out of these people's mouths, and it's just like, we've got to introduce our children to fishing. We've got to have more people introducing children to fishing, because we've got to keep this sport alive. And the only way is to keep it is to give it away. And I give it away, Bill gives it away, and you're giving it away, and it's super important, gang. So sit back and listen to this show today, but remember, it's super important to take children fishing. Look around your neighborhood, talk to your friends. If you fish and you have neighbors that have children and they don't fish, see if it's cool to take the kids fishing. Talk to them. Maybe they'd like to go fishing. It's like the most important thing right now for me is giving back and getting children fishing so we can keep fishing alive in the United States of America. Gosh, it's such an important thing right now. Wouldn't you agree, Bill?
Dave, I just want to add to that, it's interesting that you bring that up. Of course, we know that, and Rollo Kids and CCA and others have done a lot to get more kids on the water. But I got a phone call today from a dad in Huntington Beach who just said, Bill, I've wanted to call you up for a couple of weeks. I had some time. I called you today. I just want you to know that I bought my son, my 9-year-old son, your book, and he has read that entire book, which I personally thought was funny because I don't think I read a book till I was 19. So, and he read my book. And he said to me, Dad, all the years that we have been playing baseball, Little League, I want to take on fishing just like we're going to Little League practice. So his dad puts the rod and reels, all the tackle in the car 5 days a week. He picks up his son from school. They go down to the beach at Bolsa Chica and they go fishing. They've caught just about everything now, and they've been at this for 6 or 8 months. And he said, my son has paid so much attention to reading your book that when I need information about something, I'll go to my son and I'll ask him, and he'll say, well, Bill Varney says this, Bill Varney says that. So, there is nothing, and this is what I told his dad, there is nothing greater for Dave and I than to meet people who have introduced their kids or other friends or their spouse to this passion for fishing. There's nothing more equitable, if you're looking at equity in our society, than fishing. It brings everybody down to the same level. And what's so exciting about it is, as you know, if the poorest man in the world is fishing on the beach and 20 feet away is the richest man in the world, and if the poorest man brings in a beautiful fish, the richest man is not only envious, but he's going to come over to the poor man and ask him how he did it and what he needs to do to be successful. So it makes all the trees the same level, and it gives opportunity to everybody to have a passion for something they love. So it really is great. We've got to bring all the kids into fishing, give them a shot at finding out what Benny, you and me have already found out in our lives. It's something we love to do.
And that is a challenge I'm putting out to everybody that does seminars or goes to trade shows and brings product. If you ever come and watch me and Bill, when we do our thing, we stop everything when the children are there. We talk to the children. I bring a ton of swag from all my sponsors. And if you come up to that show in Ventura this weekend, Robert and Mike will be there, and they have a large box of swag that I got from Promar. Every child that comes to our booth is going to get something, because that's what it's all about. It's all about making sure that the children understand. And that young man that read your book, what a great thing. When I'm walking around and people go, hey, my son wants to get his picture taken with it. Dude, are you kidding me? That is the best. I just can't even believe it. They go, they listen to you all the time, Captain Dave. That's why when I hear these other podcasts with these guys just foul mouth, just every other word is just garbage coming out of their mouth, I'm like, you're blowing it. You can't do that. You can listen to Bill and I and Benny talk today, or any podcast I do. There's zero cuss words. There isn't, because we cannot do that. We can't do that, you guys. You got to stand up. This is it. We only got one chance. And if you blow it, you blew it. So enough of that. We could talk about taking kids fishing for the rest of my life, and I'd be way into it. But Benny, how did you get to where you are now, from Florida to going up in the mountains and fly fishing with a fly that you and I would never even put on our line back fishing in Florida or fishing in the ocean? What happened?
Well, it was a tough transition. So I've got something here for you. This is basically the scale off of a tarpon. And this is a 225-pound tarpon. I mean, it's all bent now, but originally it was big. And, probably 6 or 7 foot fish. And to kind of tell the story later, sometimes you pluck a scale off in order to show that. So, I mean, we're talking 225-pound fish. And down here, I've actually got the jaw of a bull shark that I caught one time. And the problem is, as a surfer, we always let these sharks go. But this one got tail bit by about an 800-pound hammerhead. This was about a 9-foot bull shark.
Oh, wow.
Probably about a 250 to 300-pound shark. You can kind of see the rows of teeth as I flip it here. But so it got tail bit by about an 800-pound hammerhead, which that wasn't going to allow a release. So long story short, we took his head with us. We cut the jawline out. We left it into a pile of ants, and then further on to a cooler of bleach, and there's the jaw. So growing up in Florida, fishing for these big fish, snook, tarpon, so on, sharks, the first few years of Colorado, I wasn't too into this fly fishing thing. I mean, I took a little 5-weight rod and I'm on a little creek. It's windy. My leader line gets swirled up in the bush. I finally catch an 8-inch trout. And I said, you know what? This isn't for me. So I'm a much different than most fly fishermen. When you think of fly fishing, a lot of guys fish the river. And I personally prefer the still waters, such as the lakes. Now, these fish in the still water have a lot of forage, all kinds of bugs and insects and other fish as well. And they don't have a current to fight. So they just sit there and grow bigger and bigger. So when I found out about the still water, I really enjoyed catching a little bigger trout. And I do like launching my boat as well. One thing I can say is that it's new to me is what we used to do in Florida with fly fishing is we would strip these big streamers, basically presenting them as a bait fish, getting yanked through the surf, and these predatory fish eating those bait fish. Well, nowadays we basically fish with these little tiny bugs. These are chironomids and scuds and calabatus and so on. Well, to fish with those, we actually hang these indicators from our line. When I say indicator, I basically mean a bobber. Some people have a hard time transitioning from calling it a bobber to an indicator. But when you throw that out with 3 bugs under your indicator and you watch it drop, there's just no better feeling when you set the hook and you feel that dead weight. So I find that the trout do fight pretty similar to a snook or a redfish. They jump, they shake their head, they take some aggressive runs. So I just ended up loving it. And, I do travel back and forth from Florida a lot and some other surfing destinations that put me in the saltwater. So I still enjoy that very much, but this is where I live now. And these are the fish I have. So I've been really enjoying that.
Yeah, I got into that indicator fishing in Lake Crowley. That's kind of the way you do it. 3 midges and just throwing it out there and setting and watching that indicator. And it's probably It's like probably like deep dropping for swordfish. You're staring at that indicator all day, and when you take your eye off it, that's 90% of the time when you get your bite. And it's such a subtle bite. It's very strange fish, gang. If you've never done it before, I'm lucky. I got to get introduced to it fishing on Crowley. We used to fish the double haul in the fall, the Western Outdoor News tournament up there. And if the guys that were winning were doing that, and I had to step back and learn this still water fishing because I'm a river stream guy. I need some action. I got ADD. I got to get out there and I got to see stuff happening. And then to break it down like you're doing and slow it down and set. That's a whole different thing for me. But like you said, the payoff is there. I'm looking at your pictures on your Instagram page. My gosh, I'm going to, gang, for you guys that are listening and watching, you can do this you can go on Benny's Instagram page. You can go look at all these phenomenal trout that he catches. He's got so much great content on his Instagram page. You may want to go check it out. And it's an easy trip to get to where he's at, right, Bill?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Just so interesting and such beautiful landscapes and the water and the fish they catch. And it's exciting. And he's got some really good slow motion stuff too.
And it's definitely not a thing where you're going to, and I don't know about you, Benny, but I hear this all the time because I've been a guide forever. And people go, oh, I would never hire a guide. You got to go figure it out like I did. Nobody figured it out on their own. You didn't figure it out. Bill didn't figure it out. We had mentors. We had people that taught us. And then we took what we learned and we took it to another level. If you guys are going to go to Benny's Lake and figure it out on your own, there's probably going to be a lot of days where you never even got a bite. You don't even know what fly to use. I'm going to just throw it out there. When I take my kids somewhere fishing, where we've never been before, first thing I do is hire a guide. And I know it's hard to believe, Bill, but I keep my mouth shut. And I
it's our little secret.
Because I want to find out what the guy knows. I don't know what water Benny's fishing. I didn't know how to fish the surf till I listened to Bill Varney, and I grew up on the beach my whole life in San Clemente. So when you want to go out Colorado way and go learn how to fish this still water trout, you better get a guide because you're not going to figure it out on your own. Just to go into the fly store, Benny, and look at okay, Benny said you're using midges. Well, you walk in there and look. Is there any midges in a fly store?
So there's thousands of options to use. There's different times of the year where different bugs are hatching. There's different temperatures to the water and depths. So there are so many options that you really got to have it dialed. And one way that we do that, and this is kind of a trade secret, but I'll mention it, is we have something right here, and it almost is like its own little turkey baster. And what you do is you put this down the fish's mouth to right about at its throat hatch, and you squeeze the ball. When you release the ball, it pulls some of the bugs that it's eaten in this last hour into it. And then from there, you get maybe yourself a little cup and you squeeze them in. You're able to kind of see what's hatching as far as the larva under the water, the sizes that these fish are eating, the colors, the shapes, the styles, the whole deal. And from then you can now go to your fly box that has, this is just one. I've got dozens of these things, and you can try and start to match what you're seeing that they're eating. So that's a very helpful tool when it comes to figuring these fish out. But the problem is you got to get one in the net before you can pump its stomach. So, I mean, the guides are definitely going to put you in the right direction. One of my favorite times of the year is actually August, September. And what this is from the bottom, it's supposed to be a grasshopper. Now, this floats on the surface. The white cotton ball doesn't really serve anything to the fish. It serves the angler because this is our eyes. We're looking at this white cotton ball floating on the surface. Now, underneath, you tie a couple different nymphs below it. And if this thing sinks, they ate your fly underwater. But there's no better feeling when you see a big beak come out of the water and close on this thing, and you give them a second and you set the hook and you got some dead weight on the end of the line there. So that's one of my favorite times of the year, is that September, August kind of time frame when the hoppers start coming out.
Oh my gosh, absolutely. There's nothing better than terrestrial fishing, fly fishing. Then you got a bait that you can actually see. When you get to be my age and Bill's age, if we don't have that big parachute on the back, we are not going to see. We're swinging on takes. We don't even know if they took our fly or not. We're just swinging on takes all day. But if you put that big, and when you see that big white thing on the back of that, that's called a parachute, for lack of a better word. I like the parachute Adam. That's like my go-to fly. I've done very well with it, but there's so much to know about fly fishing, gang. And that's why I'm happy that we got Benny on here today, and we'll definitely bring you back for more shows. But let me show you something real quick from our sponsor, Okuma. I just want to show this to you, gang, and then we'll get right back into this with Benny. So stay with us.
Hey guys, this is John Bretza, Director of Product Development for Okuma Fishing Tackle. What we have here is an addition to the Toro spinning reel line. This is a new 6,000 size that all you've been waiting for. Great reel for all those guys down in the southeast or the northeast that want to go target, big fish on lighter tackle. This 6,000 size holds 290 yards of 30-pound braid or 195 yards of 50-pound braid. It's packed with features. It's all Luma-Lite construction, body, side plate, and rotor. It's got the IPX7 full waterproof body, so if this thing gets submerged, you're gonna have no issues at all with it fishing. As far as drag system, it features a carbonite drag system with a maximum 33 pounds of drag pressure, so a tremendous drag output. So say you're gonna take this and fish a small, medium-sized tarpon, you're gonna have pulling power with this reel. The best feature it has is it has Okuma's new flight drive system. So that's gonna give you that really smooth operation so it feels good all day long when you're on the water. And one of the things when you're fishing braided line, there's a lot of stress placed on any reel regardless of brand or manufacturer. The one thing that we equipped this reel to make the Toro different is that instead of a stainless steel spool shaft, we used a titanium spool shaft. So this thing's super strong, super durable, but it's also something that's never gonna corrode. This little 6,000 size reel has a dual and reverse, and it's all machine cut gearing, machine cut brass main gear and pinion gear. The Toro 6000 has a 6.2 to 1 gear ratio, and that has 41.3 inches of line pickup. The entire reel weighs in at only 15.8 ounces. This reel is gonna retail for $359. And one thing that's unique about this reel that's different than the larger Toros is that when you flip that bail over and you turn the handle, the bail's gonna automatically engage. On the larger sizes, most anglers don't want that feature, but this is more universal for live baiting and casting and jigging, so we put that feature into this 6,000 size. If you wanna find out more information on the new Toro 6000, check it out at okumafishingusa.com or go see it at a local retailer near you.
Thanks, John Bretza. There's the QR code, gang, right there on the bottom. Or go to, like John said, go to okumafishing.com. Grab the QR code. You can go check out all the great products at Okuma, and you won't be disappointed. Like I said when we started the show, I've been using Okuma for as long as I can remember, and Bill and I talk about it all the time. He uses their spinning reels on the beach all the time because the really cool thing about that, like the Avengers series and stuff like that, they're priced to the consumer. They're priced to me and Bill. We don't have to take a second out on our house to go surf fishing, and then we drop it in the sand. And I remember the first time I dropped a reel in the sand, Bill, I pretty much just threw the reel in the trash. I was so disappointed in myself because I remembered you telling me, never, ever let it touch the sand. And then it touched the sand. Check out Okuma, gang. Check it out. Phenomenal product. Great thing to fish with, and you won't be disappointed. All right, Benny, you don't understand. If I could piss a puddle, I'll fish in it. That's how big of a big-time fisherman I am. I'm 62 years old, and I love this fly fishing thing that you're doing. Can we get way deep into it? Can you let me and Bill know some of your secrets today, please?
Of course. So one of the secrets, like the pump, not a lot of people know to pump a stomach to see what's in there. So that's a huge trade secret. Another one that a lot of people don't know about is actually happening right now, and it happens twice in the year. In the spring, the cutthroat and the rainbows and cut bows, those are 3 different types of trout, they're spawning. And when they spawn, they come in the shallows. So anglers that don't have boats are able to target these fish from the shoreline. Now, when they're in the middle of their spawn, you want to kind of leave them alone. But pre and post spawn, you can target them specifically with these right here. And what these are is they're just little beads, and they're supposed to represent the eggs that these fish are dropping. Now, the females will eat each other's eggs in a chance that maybe their offspring will survive and this other females' offspring won't. So they eat them for food, but they also eat them out of aggression. So long story short, you can put these beads down with a little hook behind them, and you actually peg the bead with what's almost like a little rubber toothpick on your line, and you peg it about an inch above your hook. Now, this is the hardest to determine your strike, because these beads, you have them laying down in a sandy shoal. Look, Mr. Bill's got his right there. And when your beads are laying flat on the bottom and your line's going up to your indicator on the surface, when a fish pecks at this bead on the bottom, your indicator makes the slightest little ripple, or sometimes it moves a little left or a little right. So you have to have the eye of the angler to just set the hook on these tiny little movements. Now, this is a deadly tactic. I mean, between right about now and the next 30 to 45 days, there's been times where I've touched close to 1,000 fish off just this method. Whereas, you know, there's some fly anglers, especially out here in the Colorado region, that might only catch 20 or 30 fish all year long. You know, they just don't have all the dialed. So if you can get on this bead train during the spawn, it's a really awesome time. And the secondary time that I didn't mention is in September/October, you get the brown trout spawn, and that's a ton of fun. There's actually a couple clips in the video I've created of some of those browns being pulled up on the shore, well, in the net along the bank. But yeah, so the pegged egg style of fishing during the spawn months is just key for just a lot of success. So that's one of the trade secrets for sure, other than the pump.
Are you using, I'm trying to put this together in my head. So are you using just one bead underneath your indicator, or are you using like you would a midge? Are you putting 2 or 3 under there? What are you doing? How are you doing it?
All right, so let me tell you a little about the rigging. Let's just say that you're fishing about 5 feet and it's a sandy kind of shoal bottom. You'll rig your indicator, and I like to hang a leech about 3 feet down. So you're 3 feet under the water and you're 2 feet off the bottom, because sometimes the fish will eat these leeches as well. So if you get a leech hit, you're going to see that indicator drop violently because there's enough water column for them to grab it and pull it down. Now, from that leech, about 3 feet down, now I'm running my first bead, and I run that about 3 feet back. You got 2 feet of water column under the leech, so 3 feet of line ought to put that first bead on the ground, or at least bouncing along it. So now my third fly would be another bead about 2.5 feet back from that. So the goal is to have your leech about mid water column, your first bead just bouncing on the ground, and then your last bead trailing a few feet also bouncing on the ground. Now, the 2 colors I prefer are a chartreuse and also kind of just an orange color. Now, if like orange keeps catching fish, I like to put orange as my second bead that's trailed way back, really bouncing the bottom. So depending on what you're catching on, you may rig each bead in a different variety or order. But there's also a few different sizes of beads. Right here, I've got 6 millimeters and 8 millimeters. Those are the 2 I prefer to fish. But sometimes people that are fishing for like bigger salmon in different rivers up north, they might fish like a 10 or a 12, or I'm sorry, a 4 or 2, or, you know, different size beads. But it's definitely a deadly method. And when we say pegging it, it's because we're pegging that to our line, and a hook is actually trailing by an inch. So like I said, this goes through the bead, it stays on your line. Now an inch or 2 down on your fishing line, your leader, we're tying the hook. Now, when that fish grabs that bead and you see your bobber move and you pull, that hook finds its place right in the corner. And there's some laws about how far you can put the bead up from your hook. So you might want to check your local, laws to make sure you're within the right amount of inches.
I know it's hard to imagine that there's laws about garbage like that, gang, but there is. And then who's to say if your bead slid up 3 inches or slid down? There's just so much nonsense. But yeah, like Benny was saying, you got to be careful. But I'm totally into this. And those of you that aren't into fly fishing, I know this is kind of probably sounding a little off for you and you're not really understanding it, but I understand it. That I'm sorry. You guys are all listening to me and Benny and Bill talk, but I'm talking to these guys because I want to know what they know. And the rest of you are just along for the ride if you don't get it. But I want to understand a little bit more about this bead dragging on the bottom. Is there not that much growth on the bottom that it can drag down there? Are you getting snagged? How's this working? And then what does the bite look like? Because now you really got to pay attention, right?
Yes. So the bottom typically is a little bit of a ruffled sand. And when those beads are kind of jumping from ruffle to ruffle, I think that causes a distraction, and they see maybe the sand move, they see the bright color. And that's when there's a little bit of a ripple on the surface. That actually helps fly fishing a lot, because as your bobber dances with the waves, so do your flies underneath the water. So if there is zero wind that day and no ripple on the surface, sometimes you actually pull a really slow retrieve, creating those beads to just hit those ruffles slowly. The bite is so faint. I mean, sometimes you'll see a ring just kind of come out from your indicator, the tiniest little ring, a little topple. Sometimes it just slowly starts moving left or right. But if you see that indicator do anything unnatural, you just set. And if there's nothing there, you whip it right back out in position and you wait for the next. But I mean, it wasn't uncommon for us to have 60 and 80 fish days on that style of fishing between my friend and I, where we each held up 25, 30, just absolute trophies. And that's a big reason why the whole YouTube channel and the followers are growing, is some of these people have lived in Colorado their whole lives and maybe have only held a fish or two like that. And we just held up 20 or 30 each in one day. So I learned quickly from some very skilled anglers, and I'm blessed to have, listened closely and put it into action.
And see what he just said there, gang. He learned from other people, and then he's put that together, and he's done a lot of it his own way, but someone had to show him. He didn't go figure this thing out on his own, but now he's taken it to the next level because of the fishability of Benny. And so that's why it's super important to you get to go surf fishing with Bill Varney. It changes what you catch surf fishing. You get to go saltwater fishing on a boat with me or one of my guys. It'll change your life. I want to go to Colorado. I want to go see this. I don't even care about catching them. I just want to see these live trout, these things, these giant hook jaw trout. Oh my God, that looks so, makes the hair on the back of my neck stand up. I've seen one hook jaw brown trout my whole life on Rush Creek, and it was a thrilling event. I'm looking at your Instagram page, and there's not one, there's hundreds and hundreds of them. That is such a cool thing. And yeah, that's why your page is so popular. But can people actually come and fish with you?
Absolutely. So one thing I've done a lot over the last year, especially, is I make an episode created as a subscriber giveaway. I'll go on my channel. I'll pick somebody out that's been pretty active on the channel with commenting and watching. And I'll say, you know what? It's your turn. Let's get you out, whether it's my boat or from the shoreline. I'll bring all the rods. I'll bring all the gear, and I'll bring all the film equipment, and just film an episode around these guys catching some really beautiful fish, and just kind of make their day. And they're usually pretty excited to be on an episode with Real Hustle and stoked to get some big fish under their belt. And, I do that for kids. I do that for pretty much anybody, that is willing to support the channel and wants to get out and come do some fishing.
So that's the name of your guide service, Real Hustle?
Correct.
There it is, gang, right there.
Yeah, so that's the name of my YouTube channel and my brand. And in the near future, between some specific permits and an outfitter's license, I will be taking people out as a guide. Currently, I've just been doing giveaways because I'm not quite all registered and ready to go as far as accepting money just yet.
Well, you're going to get super busy now. There's going to be a lot of people. We got a pretty big audience, but I'm pretty fired up. I have 2 people that work for me, and all they do is answer comments. I'm going to have them on your page for the next couple of days, just trying to get your attention so you can take me fishing.
Yeah, the door's always open. Denver Airport's not far from me. I pick people up all the time. I do have a home with spare bedrooms, so I put people up and I take them fishing, and it's just a fun time. So everyone's welcome to try and get over this way.
So we have a bunch of Bills fans on here, and I'm a fan of Bills. Can you tell some of us what was it like taking Bill to do it? Did Bill listen? Did Bill put it together?
So Bill and I, so far, we have sat down for a lunch and started to make a plan. We haven't hit the water yet together. And we were actually talking about possibly tomorrow looking at some water. On Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, I'm actually doing a kids event, Take a Kid Fishing Days. And I'm going to be filming it, but I also have a radio, a net, a bat, and just whatever it takes to help net these fish, unhook the fish, bat the fish, film the whole process for the kids to watch later. So yes, I think I can check some water tomorrow, but it's going to be a little bit tight with packing for the next event.
Yeah, with Bill, you and Bill were talking before we went live. It sounds like your weather over there on the other side of the mountain's kind of bitching right now. It's looking really, really good for fishing, right?
Well, the one thing we're dealing with is wind, which is never super fun to fish in the wind, you know. And when I say wind, you know, between 5 and like 15 isn't terrible, but when you start getting 20s and 30s, it's pretty nasty to be out in. But overall, yeah, fishing in Colorado, we do get wind in the afternoons a lot in the summer, but the climate is so nice. I mean, you're never sweating. You're never getting bit by bugs. You can wear a long layer sleeve pants and shirt the entire time and never be hot. So yeah, that's one of my favorite things is just the killer climate here.
And then you said you're doing this on a boat. You ever do it? I did it on a float tube. You do that ever? Or not?
Yeah, so I actually had an experience like that in Wyoming in one of my recent episodes. The problem is I was on an old boat and it wasn't inflated that well. It was a pontoon. So I'm sitting in a bucket and I've got these 2 oars. Now the oars keep coming out of the cleat and I'm trying to fight this wind to get out in position. And every time the cleat comes out, I have to drop the anchor, get it fixed. And I didn't have the best first experience, but I was using some pretty rough and tough gear that's been through it all. So yes, usually the boat all summer. So it's from the shoreline May and June, and then end of June all the way through like August, I'm on boat. And then August, September, kind of November, I am now on the shoreline again, working those 2 spawns. But then I'm on ice all winter long, fishing through the ice. So that's kind of my yearly schedule.
Ice fishing. Oh my gosh.
Correct. And
you can't really move the fly around because all you got is that hole you cut, right?
Well, it's pretty unique. So you can cut your hole and you can sit above the hole and jig all kinds of different lures, from spoons to tube jigs to so on. Or there's also a method that we use, and I never knew much about this growing up in Florida, but it's called a jaw jacker. Have you ever heard of one of those? Now, this is a contraption. I wish I would have brought it up to show you guys, but it sits over your hole and your rod sits in a holder like this. Now, your rod bends over all the way to this little mousetrap contraption with your line running down this little field goal through the hole. You set your rod like that. And long story short, when a fish pulls down on your line, it sets the rod off where it sets its own hook and it's just going like this. Now, you can put 2 of them out. In Colorado, you can fish 2 rods if you have your extra rod stamp. And you can sit in your chair, open a beer, eat some food, whatever you're doing, and just wait for the sound of the snap. And when you hear that sound of the snap, I hear it in my dreams all the time. I jump out of a dream in bed like, oh, and I'm looking around for it. But yes, ice fishing's definitely different, and there are some different techniques to it, and we've been very well successful with it as well. It is cold. It can be windy. I mean, we have our tents that we set up with heaters in them. We drill our holes, we get our rod set, and it's just an experience. So if anyone ever wants to try that, that's open as well.
That sounds incredibly cold, and no thank you, but you guys have a good time doing that. If it gets below 60 degrees, I'm looking for my Ugg boots and my down jacket. I live in a place where it very rarely does it get below 70, so you won't be seeing me bugging any of them trout in the ice.
Yeah, it's tough. We do use the mealworms for bait, like you were mentioning earlier.
That's what Marley eats every day.
If anyone is an ice fisherman on here, which I'm sure there's not many, one technique I can give you for that is whenever you tie your jig on, you want to pull your knot over on the loop of the hook in a way where your jig isn't hanging vertical. You want it to sit parallel in the water column like a fish would. So pulling your knot over on the loop of the hook, the eye of the hook, you can get it to sink parallel. Now with the mealworms, another trick I like to do is I pinch the head off the mealworm and I run the mealworm up the hook coming out the back as if it's a tail, and then I squeeze the mealworm until it pops. It's kind of gross, but I find that it puts the juices out in the area, and the fish seem to smell it from further away. So those are a few tricks for any ice fisherman on the page.
Nice. Do you see the question Dory has?
All right. So I have never fished that lake in Colorado. It's hard for me to answer that question not knowing what species or what elevation it's at. But if you'd like to comment further about what kind of fish you're trying to target within that lake, I might be able to help that.
And gang, if we're missing your questions, I totally apologize, because I am such a fly fishing fanatic geek. I'm just sitting here listening to everything Benny says, and I know there's questions going flying by. I was hoping Bill was paying attention, but he's doing the same thing I'm doing. We're both sitting here listening to every word Benny says, because he's got some phenomenal knowledge that we both are dying to get a hold of. So if we missed your question, listen, Benny will go back in after the show and he'll answer the questions. He'll be on here. He'll be active. He'll check you out. And then also, gang, you can send your questions to him. You can jump on his Instagram or his YouTube channel or his Facebook, and you can talk to him personally. He's very, very active, which what I found when I was checking him out. He's got it going on. He knows how to drive people to his site. He knows what's going on. He knows the magic. It's all about following along with your followers and answering their questions and listening to what they have to say. So make sure if you have something that we didn't cover, you guys jump on there and send him a question. He'll answer it. Okay, here we go. She's following up on it. There you go.
Yes, so I do have some answers. Lake trout are awesome. Another name for lake trout is Mackinaw, and they get up, I think our state record was in the 70-pound range. My biggest currently is around 25 pounds, which is a great fish by all means. Yeah, I mean, I'm talking 36 to 40 inches of fish, and by all means, they're great fish, but they're not as big as, I mean, the 40, 50 up to 70 pounders. Now, she wants to know about lake trout. The lake is out of Natirita. So lake trout in general are fun. You can throw big spoons for them from the bank, especially around when the ice first comes off the lake. And then you can also throw big tube jigs from the bank. One thing I like to do, and this is another trade secret, you can trap a fish called a sucker. And you throw these traps in these little ponds with bread in them. And you can buy these traps on like Amazon and so on. And if she wants to write me specifically on the Instagram, I can send her a link. Nonetheless, you trap these suckers, and in certain elevations, especially where I live above 7,000 feet, you can't fish live bait. So we keep them alive all the way up until about the time we're ready to fish them. And then we let them die. So they're as fresh as possible, freshly dead. And what we do is when the ice comes off, you set it up with a big circle hook with about a 25-pound leader, maybe running to 10-pound braid on about an 8 or 9 foot rod. Pretty stiff, I'd say medium heavy, with about a 5,000 or 6,000 reel with that 10-pound braid loaded on it. And you throw this thing out as far as you can, dead, hooked with a circle hook. You let it hit the water, you let it hit the bottom. Now, what we like to do is we'll put our rods on the shoreline, whether that's in a holder or just in the rocks or wherever you're fishing from, with the bail open. We take a can that's empty and we kind of crunch it in half. You put the can over the line on the open bail, and then you just set the rod down with the can on the line. Usually we're fishing in the rocks. So you got your 2 rods out with 2 dead suckers on the bottom with the can over your line. You just sit back, almost like the jaw jacker. You're listening for a can to just ring off in the rocks. As soon as you hear that noise, everybody's looking left or right to see which rod is screaming drag off the bail. Once you get the rod in your hand, you let out. Some people like to go for a minute. I personally give it about 15 seconds of a strong run off the reel. Close the bail. Point the rod directly at where you think the fish is. As it comes tight, circle hooks, I just start cranking. Some people don't use circle hooks and they do a good hook set, but between the tube jigs, the spoons from the shoreline, or the sucker, those are my 3 best tactics for lake trout.
Did you see the question from Nick?
Yes, I do. So I have a moment in Wyoming, and I'm fishing with one of my newer friends. He's 70 years old. His name's Mark Armstrong, and he is just an absolute legend. And he invites me up from my YouTube channel. It says, Benny, I love what you're doing. I've got all these records in Colorado. And sure enough, he does. I've seen all the newspaper articles. Come up to Wyoming and fish with me. So I spent 3 days with him ice fishing. And it was right around like March/April. So the ice was coming off or getting kind of dangerous in places. So we got 2 days of ice fishing and did great, caught all kinds of great fish. But on the third day, we did some open water fishing. And he took me to this little bend in the river near a bridge where we were throwing spin cast Rapala jerk baits. And I must have took 150 casts in this one little pocket and surrounding area. And Mr. Mark goes, Benny, I think it's time to go. And I said, Mr. Mark, one last lucky cast. And I did this all on video. I said, last lucky cast. And I threw it. About the second or third jerk, I got smashed with a 25.5-inch brown trout. And at the time, it was my biggest brown trout. And something about just all those casts and the last lucky cast and Mr. Mark netting the fish. But something about that fish was probably one of my most memorable trout moments. There's a few others I can think on, but that might hold the title.
Well, that's a phenomenal story. Yeah, what a beautiful brown trout. Unbelievable. Hey, SoCal Angler, you left this comment. What's really cool about our podcast is, yes, every single one of these podcasts are fully recorded. As soon as we're done live, they go out on Spotify, Apple, Megaphone, and you can always go back and look at them on YouTube. You can go back and look at them on Facebook. They're all available. We do this, try to do this Monday through Friday at 12 o'clock. Today, we're a little late because Bill was sleeping and Benny and I did everything we could to wake him up. And here we are a couple hours late, but no, I'm just kidding. But we do this every day. It's the weirdest thing you've ever seen, SoCal Angler. We do this every day. I bring in all kinds of special guests from all over the country. We're going to have a young man with us on Friday who How To Boating is his YouTube channel. He has a phenomenal amount of followers. He's going to fit in perfect with what I do every day and all the love that I get from all the people on how to tie up your boat and how to park your boat and how to fillet fish. So it's going to be a great show on Friday. But we do this Monday through Fridays at 12 o'clock Pacific Standard Time. We're the only live podcast 5 days a week in America. It's pretty spectacular. I really enjoy this. And Benny, I want to talk more about this. We're going to go over a little bit today, gang. Sorry if you have somewhere to go. You can listen to it later on the recording. But had one of my good friends, Jeff, he's right here. He's always watching the show. Do you guys have lightning trout there? Or is this, I don't even think lightning trout are real. Are they, Bill? They're just like a make-believe. They put food coloring in them and put them in lakes. You don't. They're not real fish.
I've never specifically heard of that, so I don't exactly know what a lightning trout is. Some of the more special trout that I could say when you catch them, there's just, is a tiger trout. Now, they are just beautiful. They're a mix between a hybrid of two different trout, and it just creates this really cool pattern across their back. Another one is the high alpine trout. They are just a cutthroat trout. High alpine cutthroat trout. And they are on my page on the Instagram, that real red fish, or the background of my Facebook. Now that's a high alpine cutthroat trout. And the problem with those trout is they are hard to get to. I mean, you have to hike miles and thousands of feet of elevation to get to most of them. And when you do get to these lakes that are high up in the alpine above tree line, it's not a guarantee that there's big fish in there. There's a lot of lakes that only hold up to about 16-inch cutthroat trout. So when you start catching ones like that one pictured there, that one was 24 inches and like 5 pounds. I mean, that's my best of West trout that I've ever caught out here. No questions asked. It's not my biggest, but it is the best of West. Now,
is that the one in the middle on that picture right there?
It is in the middle, but the way that problem is it cuts it off pretty bad by the way that Instagram doesn't like sideways taken photos. It likes the vertical. Okay. So, yeah, I don't know. It's kind of hard to see there. If you go to my Facebook link, I think you might get a little bit better of a shot. It's still a little bit cut out by my profile picture, but you can see the tail, the head, a little bit more of the body. Now they get a little extra red when they're in their spawning state. So that's why he looks so red.
And see that hook jaw I was talking about, gang? That's, as a fly fisherman or a trout fisherman, that is like the holy grail. When you get a trout with that hook jaw, see how it's hooked? That's when you're like, oh, I did it. I've only caught one. I mean, it's kind of a big deal.
So
Yeah.
I can add a little bit to that. The hook jaw is also named a kype jaw, and it signifies a male versus a female. So the males, as they get older and uglier and bigger, they start to hook up their jaw a bit. The females don't do that. So it's a good way to know this is a male or a female when you see the hook in the jaw.
And you know he's old. You know he's old.
Oh, yeah. The bigger, the older, and the uglier, the better.
One of my buddies, really close friend, Dave Burris, asked me a question because he likes to still water fish trout in Pyramid Lake. Have you ever tried the J Fair wiggle tails?
No, I haven't. I've never even heard of those. Is that a spin cast? Yeah, I'm not too sure. There's
so he's gonna throw. He watches religiously, so he'll throw up what it is up here on the questions. I'll throw it up real quick on the page, but yeah, the lightning trout, Jeff. That's a man-made trout. They're a gimmick trout. They're man-made. They don't really exist in the wild. I know they exist in the lake that they put them in. Like they used to put them in Lake Mission Viejo. They put them in Irvine Lake. They put them in all those pay-to-fish lakes. It's kind of a golden colored rainbow trout. It's a rainbow trout that they put a bunch of food coloring in and they put a bunch of dye in it. I'm just being honest. I can't lie. This isn't CNN. I can only tell you the truth. And they're not a real fish. They're a make-believe fish created for fishermen by fishermen, kind of like the artificial reefs in Southern California. So let's see. What do we got? Oh, here we go.
The first time I saw one of those golden trout, because it's such an unusual, pale looking thing, I wondered if you could even eat it. I had to ask somebody if they're edible. So yeah, it's a man-made trout. But like Benny said, whether it's in the Sierras or here, at higher elevations, the food that's available for the trout is in much smaller number, but it's much smaller food. Whereas down at the lower elevations, and here in Colorado, we would consider 8,000 or 9,000 feet low elevation. It's different. For example, at the reservoirs that are right over the hill from us, that Benny has many videos from, Spinney Reservoir, 11 Mile, and Toro. They're different in the sense that they're very shallow reservoirs and they contain an excessive amount of clams, of shrimp, and of crawdads. And so these big fish, they just gorge on all of those, and that's what makes them so big. If you think about a lot of these largemouth bass in local Southern California lakes, they get so big because when the Fish and Game truck backs up and dumps all those little trout in the lake, they go and eat all those little trout. And that's what makes them so big. That's the same thing that happens here in Colorado using natural things in the lake. And that's why so often the fish here are not only holdovers, but when the Department of Fish and Wildlife drops them in the lake, they grow to 6, 7, 8, 10, 12 pounds based on the food that's in those lakes. And so those holdover fish, what we would call in California holdovers, here in Colorado, if you were to take one of those and fillet them out, they've got a pink meat, just like the salmon. They're absolutely delicious, and they grow to this giant size because of the food that's available in the lake versus the lakes we hike to that are at a higher elevation, like over the hill here for me, Wheeler Lakes. They have a lot of cutthroat in them, but they're only maybe, 8 to 17 or maybe 20 inches at the biggest because of the amount of food they have available and the fact that they're under ice 9 months out of the year.
Yeah, exactly. And Bill said something that probably made a lot of you trout fishermen cringe right there when he told you they're delicious, because Oh my gosh. You want to ruin a fly fisherman, tell him you killed one and ate it. Oh my God. The guy's
So,
gonna start crying.
so they are delicious. Mr. Mark up in Wyoming, he likes to smoke them, and it's very good
Mm.
smoked. And I've eaten my fair share of these trout as well. The one thing I don't like is that there's no fillet table. You can't throw the carcass back in the ocean. It's just you got to bring it all home. And I mean, I'm up here in the West. I'm in the high mountains. I like elk. I like bison. I like, beef. I don't eat as much fish living up here as I once did in Florida. So I find myself releasing most fish just because they're not as prevalent as, let's say, a snook or a flounder or a redfish, or just as tasty. I mean, triple tail and snapper and just so many good
Mhm.
fish I grew up on. The trout just don't quite do it for me the same. And I did see a few questions here I didn't get to answer. If you'd like
Yeah,
me to go ahead. One of them asked about the high Sierras in California. I've never fished over there. The only times I've ever came to California was to surf the U.S. Open at Huntington Beach Pier. I've never thrown a line in the water once in California. I was there strictly for surfing, and I'd like to change that, though, with you guys. So hopefully soon I will make it that way. Another question I see here is about golden trout, and they're also a high alpine lake type fish that are very beautiful and just elusive, hard to get to. And it's talking about the eagles, easily seeing them from the sky. And yes, they do. They get whacked. We also have the most easily hunted is called a palomino trout. People also call them a banana trout. They're bright yellow. I mean, you can see them through many feet of water just with the naked eye, no polarized, nothing. So you got to imagine that the eagles are just nailing those palominos, like just taking them out of existence.
If you could find a picture of that, it's got to almost look like a lightning trout then, Bill, a
Mhm.
banana trout if it's yellow, because that's kind of what that Jeff was talking about, the lightning trout. They're like a yellowish clear color. It's a weird fish, but I think they're genetically made here in California. But
Mhm.
do the golden trout that you guys have in Colorado, is that the same golden trout that we have in California, or do you know?
I'd imagine it is. They're kind of similar colors to a cutthroat, maybe a little less spotting, and they're usually
Mhm.
real pink with kind of a yellow slash through them.
Mhm.
But yes, I guarantee you that they are the same exact fish. And there's different kind of subspecies. Now I've got some pictures of some palominos up here. If you'd like, I could try and email you one.
Yeah, if we could check it out. And yeah, my buddy Dave Burris is saying, yeah, that Palomino is a lightning trout in California.
Mm.
So
Got it.
that's,
Okay. So I thought that the lightning trout sounded familiar, but I've never really heard it called that. But I think I did read about the guy who kind of had his own pond and genetically made these things or something.
yeah, exactly. Kind of crazy, kind of weird stuff. So if you guys want to follow along with Benny and you want to know what he's doing and you want to see all his cool stuff, he's going to give you a rundown of all of his social media pages right now. I'd suggest checking it out. If any of this stuff sounded interesting today, definitely go check out his Instagram page and his YouTube page. Very, very active. He's going to try to answer all your questions and comments. And you're going to see some phenomenal trout, just some unbelievable fish that you can't even believe exist in lakes and streams. And so check all that out. And Benny, give them a rundown on how they can find you.
So on YouTube, you could search Real Hustle, and I've got it here on my hat. It might be backwards for you guys, but it's spelled REEL Hustle. And you can find me on YouTube. Anything I've spoke on, you guys can sit there and scroll the thumbnails and see the different times of the year, the different species of fish, and so on. I think you'll really enjoy the videos. We put a lot of time into the different angles of cameras with drones flying, underwater cinematography, and so on. You can also find me on Instagram just as Benny Bobbit. And if you're reading the bottom of my picture, you can read it right there and type that in, and you'll find me on Instagram. as well as Facebook. I'm also Benny Bobbit on Facebook. So you can reach out to me with any more questions you might have. You can watch specific videos on my YouTube channel and question those, and I can answer those. So yeah, I don't know. Do you still have a little thing that I put together to show the audience, or did that not work out? The little video.
That did not work out because of that bus, because of having to go to the airport and everything today. I got caught behind the 8 ball. But is this a Palomino for you guys?
That is. Some people
Yeah.
call it banana trout or Palomino. But yes, that is. I've only ever caught one, and it was at a private lake that had been stocked. So I don't exactly count. I haven't gotten one in the wild yet.
So that's our lightning trout in California.
Mhm.
That's him.
Yep, we do have those, and I have caught one. But
And he looks
not in the
sick.
wild. Yeah, they are. They're cool looking.
He's sick looking fish. And boy, that's got to be like a candy bar to those bald eagles over there in Colorado. They see that. They're like, oh, baby.
So for anyone who's currently watching, I created about a 3-minute kind of just snippet of what Real Hustle is for this show. We didn't get it on the show, but what I'll do is as soon as the show does end, I'll go to my YouTube channel and launch it public for anyone that wants to see it.
Yeah, you can put it
I
on.
really recommend to everybody, every single person watching this, whether you're a freshwater angler or saltwater angler, go to Benny's YouTube, watch all of his videos, but watch this video. And if you're not a trout angler yet and you're not interested in coming to Colorado, your whole life is going to change tomorrow. This is really amazing stuff. You've never seen fish like this. In California for years, the hatcheries made fish. They drop fish in the lakes and streams. You could go out and catch a 15, a 12, a 15, a 17-inch rainbow or a brown trout. These trout are the size of fish you're finding under kelp patties. You've got to check this out. It's amazing stuff.
So one thing I can say is you'll also see some snook. You'll see some triple tail. You'll see some mahi-mahi, some kingfish. I tried to make a little bit of everything. You'll see the big Mackinac Lake trout. And another part of the rainbow, brown, cutbow, and so on is like Bill said, a lot of anglers that fly fish, they get 16 to 18 inches, and it's an absolute trophy. Well, where some of these reservoirs I fish, the average fish is 20 to 24. When I take people that have never caught trout like that there, and they get their first fish and it's 22 inches, they are just, I mean, they're appalled. And I tell them this might be the smallest one you catch all day, and they just can't believe it. It turns out to be true. They get a 23, they get a 25. And so we're really lucky on some of these reservoirs on the average size of the fish. So that's very helpful.
That's incredible size. That's incredible numbers too. While we're talking, I'm trying to load that video, but it's not going to happen, gang. It's not going to happen in my time. But Benny, you can post it right up on this podcast after we're done. If you want on Facebook and YouTube, you can just click it right on there, and then you guys can see what he's talking about. But definitely go to his YouTube channel, go to his Instagram, go to his Facebook, check it all out, follow along, and keep the comments coming on the show because he'll be on there. He'll be trying to answer it. Is there any more questions you guys have before we let him go? Because my buddy's sitting at the pool waiting for me to start his vacation here in Cabo.
I think that one of the great comments is here by Jeff from Huntington Beach. He said, I think all of our wives and girlfriends like the show today because of Benny.
Well, I'm married, so you don't got to worry about that. I'm loyal, I'm faithful, and I'm honest. So
you're not going after the best offer, huh?
Well, sorry, Benny, but Kelly, my wife, has a crush on Bill. She loves Bill. She loves how smart he is. She loves his voice. So yeah, you're a handsome young man, but you got nothing on Bill. Sorry.
Please.
Oh my God, Benny.
Love you, Kelly.
Thank you so much for being with us today. I really appreciate it. I'm sorry I didn't get that video out for you, but hopefully we did enough to get some people to go follow you. Gang, follow along, check it out, share this video with everybody. I got one more thing I want to talk about, and this is kind of important because this show is going to open up this weekend. Gang, show everybody. It looks like we got weather coming again this weekend. We're going to talk about it on the game plans. I know it sucks. It's like a broken record every weekend that we got weather. But you know what? If you're up in the Ventura, Oxnard, Santa Barbara area, there's a phenomenal show at the Ventura Fairgrounds, the West Coast Outdoor Sport Fishing Expo. It's going to be a fun show. We're going to have a booth there. Mike and Robert are going to be hanging out in the booth. We got giveaways for the kids. If you show up wearing one of my shirts, you get in for free. Plus, Mike and Robert have a handful of shirts for sale at the show, so you can buy a shirt and get in the show for free. And then we're doing, Bill, I don't know if you heard us talking about this, but we're doing a surf fishing contest. Whoever catches the biggest surf fish, and it's going to be Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And Bill tells me there's some big whopper fish swimming around in Ventura. If you catch a big fish, take a picture of it, go into the show and show it to Mike or Robert. We're going to give away a really bitchin'. We're going to put together a great swag bag from all of our sponsors. So you're going to win some really cool stuff, and you're going to get to fish at the trade show on the water. I mean, what a great thing. So check out the show. It should be a lot of fun, gang. And unfortunately, we got weather coming again this weekend. So it sounds like it may be the only thing you can do this weekend. So go check it out. Go to the show. Benny, thank you. Bill, thanks for bringing Benny in and introducing me to him. I can't wait to get to Colorado now. I thought I was going to have to go to Colorado and fish with Bill, but now I can fish with Benny.
Well, I'll put you guys both on my boat, and we'll go out there and absolutely slay them.
Oh, could you imagine the content the three of us could make? Holy moly. We might get a view or two.
Looking forward to it.
All right, everybody. Thank you very much for a great show again. Hit the share button, the like button, subscribe to our channel, follow along. I'll be back with you tomorrow. Tomorrow's a super special show, gang. I could start crying when I talk about this show tomorrow. Listen to this lineup on the show tomorrow. Kelly Girl, my wife, is going to interview Donna Kalis, my sister, and Shayla Manzer. The three of them are going to be on here talking. I'll be here refereeing. But Kelly Girl and Donna and Shayla talking about fishing and talking about the industry. Shayla's a plethora of information, commercial fishing, working up there, deadliest catch boats, catching crab, swordfish fishing, and then owning John's Fish Market in Dana Point Harbor. And then everybody knows Donna. Everybody knows Donna Kalis, Woman of the Year in the state of California, give back like nobody's business, sits on the board of CCA California. She runs the largest family-owned sport fishing operation in California. Nobody else. She has the largest family-owned sport fishing operation. She owns Dana Wharf Sport Fishing in Dana Point Harbor, and you're going to have the three of them talking tomorrow. It's going to be a phenomenal show, gang. I'm so glad that she's going to do it. She won't do the show with me, but she said she'll do it with Kelly. So it's going to be really fun tomorrow, gang. Make sure you tune in. That'll be at 12 o'clock Pacific Standard Time. And I will see you all tomorrow. Turn off the news. Remember, they're all lying. This is the only place you get the truth. And we got plenty of water, according to Bill. So be careful because they're raising your rates because